think we're cooking. We're cooking with gas, man. How was your dental appointment?
Corey, don't get any of this in there. This is like a dish rag. I'm just like so I'm sweating. Well, the dental appointment was fine, but we my partner and I are planning, like I said in the meeting this morning, driving across the country. Now, we're doing that leaving on Thursday, the option of leaving on Friday. However, obviously, probably similar in Europe, things are fast tracking again. And we're trying to not be in a situation where they tell us, hey, listen, you can't even leave your neighborhood.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
might be going today. We'll see how she goes.
Wow. So are you just going to be packing the car with all your
Yeah, well, luckily last night, her and I threw everything together. We camp a lot anyway, so we always have it pretty together. So to the right of me, even though this currently looks nice, is just every camping item that we own.
nice.
It's pretty wild. So all of our board games, everything. All I'm missing currently is food and beer. So I think I'll be okay.
Nice.
You'll find that somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere along the way.
Yeah.
So how far are you going? How far is the trip?
So it is 39 hours. So it's 3,900 kilometers.
Okay.
It's the second largest landmass in the world. And my little minivan named Gregory has done it now 4 or 5 different times amidst, alongside of all of the separate touring that I've done. Just, he is like my most trustworthy friend. Hopefully, and hopefully he makes it.
So what are you been working through lockdown on stuff? What's been keeping you going?
I actually so we started an album. I say we, but I started an album in January, and things are really cooking. And I went to Folk Alliance, and when I came back from Folk Alliance, I had to. I kind of came down ill, and we had another recording session booked, and so that got pushed back a little bit. And then as a result, 4 of the songs on the album were scheduled to be finished March 20th, and obviously,
Right. Yeah.
it seems doomsday was in between the 15th and the 20th. For the first few months of lockdown, I think it's kind of like everyone was like, oh, I'm going to be the best, greatest version of myself, when in fact I was not really that. But lately, and kind of because of, the inspiration of being able to talk with our other artists and seeing that there's still a lot of creation and great things kind of coming out, it has inspired me to really start writing again. And I think that what's going to come out of it is going to be really great. And it's also kind of been fun in a way, because some of the music that I hadn't planned on kind of releasing yet, I've just started putting up, and I have a little EP of the material that I've done so far that's going to come out on my birthday at the end of October. So it's been kind of it's been a juggling time in my life, but it's really
Excellent.
fun.
The album, has it changed at all since you were going to complete it in March? Has anything on the album changed, or your approach to it, or that?
Honestly, stepping back from it and looking back is kind of something I've never had, the time to do, or it's just never happened. And so there are a couple of songs where, that aren't on this first 4-song EP. So I'm releasing it in 3 4-song EPs, culminating in the full.
Nice.
Just kind of as a way to keep things going. But so on the first 4 songs, they were kind of the 4 of the 8 that are done, where it was really connecting with all of those, moving those forward. And then on the remaining 4 that are done, I still feel really connected to them, but there are a couple of things that I think now I do get to go back and maybe readjust. Time is always a good thing. I mean, sometimes.
Yeah.
The more time I have with something, the more time I have to convince myself that I hate it. But I love this. So
This is like one of those Pink Floyd albums or something that they just spend 6 months working in the studio, just playing around, and then just scrap it all, and then
Didn't Axl Rose worked on an album for what was it, like 17 years. But during this process, what I've tried to do is like, I've kind of almost fallen more in love with what's been done. And I feel like because I haven't had that rush to, well, it's done, you got to get it out. It's kind of been like nice, and I'm really proud of it. So
That's great, man.
You had released some songs in the summer through lockdown, though, hadn't you, Adyn?
yeah, so it's two of those songs are on this EP, and so both
Is
of them,
that "Leave It Alone"
Leave It Alone and Kids.
and
Kids,
"Kids"? Yeah, they're great songs, man.
Thank you very much. Leave It Alone wasn't really ever supposed to be, a single. I don't even really know what singles are these days.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Leave It Alone was just like, we were a couple months into being, without direction and not really knowing what was going on in the world. And it's funny because that song ended up kind of becoming a song that I felt reflected the way that people probably were thinking, in their minds. It's like the song is about the inability to kind of like quiet all of the questions of like, what is the meaning of like so many things in your life and just life in general. And I think that it's a struggle that we all have, but I think it's been heightened during this time. So it felt like a good song, and wasn't intended to come out first, but that's the way it came out. And I've ended up being so happy about it.
Aiden, man, do you want to talk about why you changed your name and stuff? I know you've mentioned it in the stuff to us, like, but I mean,
Sure. I like when I talk about like Adyn Townes and stuff, I kind of haven't really highlighted it a lot, kind of like recently. But when I started, the transition had to be mentioned a lot. So I performed and still live by my given name, which is Andy Brown, and I performed under that name for my entire career, and I released 3 full-length albums. It was, really the start of everything. Those albums did really well, and I got to go a lot of really great places, under my singer-songwriter first and last name. And then in 2015, I was on tour for my last album. So the first album is False Alarm, the second album is Tin Man, and the third album in 2015 was called Seasons. And it was an album that I remember when I made it, super folky, a little bit looser than anything I've ever done. And I was really proud of it. And I went on this tour, and I had this great big tour planned. And probably the second show of the tour, I went to Newfoundland to open for one of my favorite bands called Winter Sleep. And I ended up like, in the daytime, I went to shoot a little video in Cape Spear, which is this beautiful spot in St. John's, Newfoundland. And I ended up like, the cameraman that I was with filming this video fell in the ocean. And it was a very bad situation. It is not a spot you fall in. People do die there. And so I didn't see him or how he had fallen in. I ran over just to try to help. Ended up falling in myself, quite a bit worse. And so when I was in there, I had this like super out of body experience. So it's like middle of September, it's freezing cold, I'm fully dressed. And I knew that like I only had a couple of chances to kind of like grab onto a rock. So I tried, went under the water. And when I was under the water, I remember thinking like, really, you have one more shot at this. And in that moment, I thought of like my family and everything like that, and kind of like came to this spot where I was like, you know what, if I can get out of this, then I'm going to like start fresh, leave everything in the past. Because like sometimes I do get a little fixated on some, like negative, I kind of tend, or hopefully tended to see the glass half empty, and wasn't making music maybe as fun for myself as I think it should be, because it's so amazing that any of us get to do this for a living. And obviously I did make it out. I ended up tearing my rotator cuff in my right shoulder. I had to take like a year and a half off music. And during that time, I like again, I went through it. I was really kind of struggling and made this decision where it's like, you know what? Let's just start fresh, start with a new approach to everything. I started all new social pages and just kind of left a lot of that in the past. I still play some of those songs because they're still like, I still love them. I'm so proud of them. But yeah, and it was truly like the best thing that has ever happened to me.
Your songwriting has changed, as you mentioned, slightly, but like, is it like totally different stuff, or is it like?
It's just a little bit more. It all comes from the same place. Lyrics are always the most important thing for me, and my thought process is always like, if the lyrics don't come from a real place and if they're not genuine, no one's going to believe it. So I only ever write things that are honest to me. So lyrics are still number one most important focus, but the music has just kind of like, it's a little bit less it's just a little less folky. I just kind of threw alternative in front of it. I kind of got influenced by a lot of bands that have great words. Like there's a band from, well, tragically they lost their lead singer, but Frightened Rabbit was like one of my favorite bands. It really influenced my direction into Adyn Townes. And yeah, so I mean, it's just kind of like a little less folky when it's represented on the albums. At the same time, if I picked up an acoustic guitar, it would sit right alongside, kind of who I am and where I came from.
When you tour, do you do that? Do you swap to just you and an acoustic, or do you take like a band on tour? Because like your album is like full sound, like a full band.
Yeah, well, I played like lots of band shows. Of course, Canada is so big that the ability to kind of travel kind of frequently, and the cost, Canada's quite expensive, is a little bit not always realistic. And so mostly, I kind of swap back and forth depending on where I am. But there is something, because when I was playing, at the start of my career and stuff, there is something that I just find so magical and like internal about playing by myself. I just feel like the freedom of, I'm going to slow this song down. I'm going to extend this song. I'm going to throw in this thing I was working on, in the shower before the show. Like, I love that freedom, the ability to like change songs on the fly and all of that stuff. So I think that, moving forward, and obviously COVID related, probably the likelihood is that moving forward for a little while, I'll probably be doing a little bit more solo shows, but I also love playing with the band because there's that energy and that it's fun, and you got your buds there, and
throwing in the last minute changes can really put the fear into a band.
Yeah, who was it? James Brown. He used to snap his fingers. He'd take $5 off the pay.
That's right. Yeah.
I think someone, I can't remember who, but it was like 3 mistakes, like in total, and you were like fired. Not at the show, like it was like a running tally. So like, ooh, that wouldn't be good for my show because I would be fired several times over.
Well, see, we've got a good thing going on for pipes, because to most people's ears, the bagpipes sound like it's just constant mistakes. So they can never really identify when a mistake happens.
Well, this is funny. When I was in the dentist chair today, I was singing "We Spree" like over and over and over. And honestly, because I ended up doing like several takes of it, because what is it, Gaelic? Is that the language of it?
Well, it's actually not. It's the language of the pipes. For hundreds of years, bagpipes were taught using a vocal approach, and you actually weren't even allowed to try and play the old pieces on the instrument until you could sing correctly the entire melody. So,
oh, that's amazing! Language of the pipes.
Yeah.
Cool. I loved that song. I probably annoyed my neighbors with it because it took me like 3 or 4 hours to be able to get it kind of down, which is why I was humming it today. Adyn Townes.
Yes, Adyn Townes, brilliant, man. That's it, boy.
You know, I look forward to learning the language of the pipes and then stealing your job in Breabach.
I will hand it to you.
And you can come to Canada and be me and just sit with an acoustic guitar and watch sports all day.
Yeah.
But I just envy, like, it just always seems so fun. And I don't know. I always think that, like, Celtic and trad musicians must just be, like, so pumped all the time. I'm sure that's not the case.
No, that's true. We are always. Yeah, the East Coast. You're from New Brunswick, right? Is it New Brunswick? Yeah. There's like around there, just like Nova Scotia. Like the very few times I've been, there's like just there is a buzz about the place in terms of trad.
I've got these really good buds named the East Pointers, who I don't know if you guys have ever come kind of in contact with, but they're like, yeah. And Tim Chasen and I from that band, like we both started kind of touring back on MySpace. I remember I met him and I messaged him on MySpace and said, like, you know, can I come open a show? And that started, you know, kind of a years long friendship. Man, MySpace, I tell you. Woo.
Open some doors.
This is very timely, this interview, because potentially, it might not work out this way, but potentially tonight, for you, Adyn, the final of the Stanley Cup could be tonight.
You know what? I'm willing to say that it is tonight.
Oh.
Genuinely, baseball is my favorite to watch. Now, of course, a lot of people would be like,
yeah, you're crazy.
And sometimes the longer the better. I remember a couple of years ago, I was on tour and put this baseball game on, and just like the audio in the car. And it was about a 7-hour car ride. And people in the car didn't really want to listen to it. And actually, it was a couple of people I didn't know. And I was like, well, listen, game's only going to take about 2 hours, 45 minutes. And like, it'll be fine. And the game went 19 innings. And it was like it was the full length of the car ride. And they said I could keep it on. They said I could listen to the whole game. So, I mean, I was in heaven. Blasted. And I would dare say that cricket is just as boring, if not more boring. Sorry to anyone out there who loves cricket. You guys may very well love it. I love how, like, don't some cricket matches last like days?
5
years.
Yeah.
Cricket matches are like baked potatoes. Like, they just take forever to finish. I'm gonna put a baked potato in the oven before I leave for my cross Canada trip, and by the time I'm back,
it'll be perfect.
It'll just still be slightly underdone, but
Be the perfect cricket ball.
oh yeah, it'd be all right. I've only been to Glasgow the one time. Absolutely loved it. I mean, I spent where did I play there? Maybe Hug and Pint or
Oh yeah.
yeah. And like had limited time, loved it. I mean, we like loved it so much that it was like, if we could move anywhere, would be there. Plus, like that night, literally we like met and hung out with Franz Ferdinand in like a local bar. And it was just like, well, what a day. So when I come back, maybe we can go back to Hug and Pint, because I had loved it there. Hopefully it is still like around, and have a beer, have a wee spree.
Exactly.
Yes.
Is that what that means?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
It's really like a swally. Yeah.
Oh, amazing. Think it's time we got away, so don't keep me waiting. We'll be ghosts inside a frame, forever waving.
If I'm lost along the way, will you keep me straight edge? We got miles and miles for days. Where did the time go? I want my name back. I tried to love you, but I lost track. Why do mountains melt into meadows? So many questions I need to know. I can't leave it alone. No, I can't leave it alone. Set out in the afterglow under painted skies. Lost you in the chemicals, the trail behind. Why don't real colors show when it's dark? Is gray matter all we are? Where did the time go? I want my name back. I tried to love you, but I lost track. Why do valleys turn to volcanoes? So many questions I need to know. I can't leave it alone. No, I can't leave it alone. When I was younger, I used to see clearer. Now I'm out of focus when I look in the mirror. Why are diamonds cut from destruction? There's too much pressure. I just can't function without a lifeline, without these answers. What am I doing? When will I ever track down the reason? Where do I begin? So many questions. I'm losing hope. I can't leave it alone.